Check one, check one. All right, we're in the game. All right, welcome. Welcome, everyone. I want to do a live stream today, and it's Saturday. It's kind of cold outside, so I felt like doing a live stream. Awesome things going on. Got some green tea. Having some green tea. News. The channel's reached 1,000 subscribers, so that's really awesome. The thumbnail for this live stream is one of the first pictures that I ever took for my YouTube channel. I was out at my parents' house and I was trying to just take some random pictures of myself to make thumbnails. So it's really fitting that, I don't know, I think it's like 2.5 years, 3 years now, maybe going on 3 years. So I think that it's fitting. It's a huge accomplishment for me, for myself, and it took a long time to get there, to get 1,000 subscribers. And it's not so much the subscribers that's important, but it's the features that I'll be able to have once I get into the partnership program through YouTube and stuff like that. Like now I can do some broadcasts of posts and whatnot, so that's really cool. So today I want to talk about the pitfalls of the New Age movement. The New Age movement, or you could even say just modern spirituality. We don't always have to classify things as, this thing and put things in a box. Other times we do. But so you could say the New Age movement if you want, or just modern spirituality, or the definition of spiritualism. Like what does that actually mean? And I think in order to get into these 6 points that I have listed, I think that we need to understand what spirituality is versus awakening. And there's a huge difference between spiritual awakening and spirituality. And spirituality, I believe, is something that comes from awakening. And like, for instance, for myself, I was not at all a spiritual person whatsoever until I had this massive awakening. And then slowly I had, like some dark nights of the soul type things. And also there is a misconception about what a dark night of the soul is as well. And that would be a fantastic topic to get into to describe what that is. But Saint John of the Cross has a fantastic book about the dark night of the soul. And if you are truly interested about what this genuine dark night of the soul experience is, Saint John of the Cross wrote a fantastic book, and I have it on PDF in my computer somewhere, and it's just filled with great things. So I would say that spirituality is directly linked to spiritual awakening, but they are not the same thing. And that is the title of this video, is Pitfalls of the New Age Movement, or modern spirituality, is because I believe that everything that I'm about to talk about directly correlates from not having true awakening experiences, which lead to genuine spirituality. So, number one pitfall is spiritual materialism. There is a fantastic book as well, written by this. I made a few videos about this before, about spiritual materialism and what it is. But basically, it is this whole, just like in life, how we have competition and we have the ego is very strong about, wanting to be the best and all of these things. It's the same as the spiritual materialism aspect of spirituality goes. So an example would be, people are genuinely concerned with how many retreats that they went to, how many workshops that they did, who's who in the community of spiritual people. Do I look spiritual? What kind of clothes am I wearing? That type of thing is all wrapped up into spiritual materialism, and it can mask itself very, very sneakily, and to the point where people don't even realize what is happening, and they are just being disillusioned by they're just disillusioned by thinking that it's something that it's not. And this is a great thing that happens in a lot of people. And I would argue that it happens because they are strongly still identified with their egos. And this will be a rude awakening for you if you don't understand this, not just for yourself, but with other so-called spiritual people. You'll be thinking that everyone's on the same page, that, you know, you're at like some type of workshop or something, and you can quickly be very caught off guard by the sometimes competitive nature and also ego inflated nature of some of these so-called spiritual people. So, you know, I think that we need to talk about these things. I think people need to hear this. I don't think that it's healthy to just continue to accept this type of behavior. And if you're watching this channel, I know that you are a leader, that you like healing, you're into you know, self-empowerment and all these different things. So it's up to us to kind of put our feet down, establish firm boundaries on what is acceptable and what is not. And there is a way to go about bringing these issues out as well. And that can be a fun challenge for you. Maybe you know people that are this way, and it will be an art form to give this person a lesson, so to speak. And spiritual materialism also comes from being very immature in your spirituality. And that comes from just being young in spirit. I would say this is like most newly awakened people, they get into, you know, a lot of fads, a lot of trends in the new age movement, especially on YouTube, and it's like a vortex that just sucks them right in. And I'm included in this myself. I'm not sitting on some type of pedestal thinking that I'm above these things. I'm just aware of them. And I have become more aware of these things as we become more mindful in our own awakenings and in my own life. These are all things that we need to look at. Number 2, abuse of plant medicine. So this is another one that is just another demon in disguise. This is just another devil that's masquerading as an angel. And how it masquerades is the spirit of addiction and these very slippery slopes, people that are, you know, alcoholics or drug addicts, and then they come to spirituality, and then very quickly they have people then, you know, doing MDMA, people doing ayahuasca, people doing mushrooms, and all of a sudden now it's okay to use these substances because they're quote unquote spiritual. But these people, there's certain people that shouldn't be doing these things at all for a significant amount of time, and the abuse of plant medicine is rampant in the community. And this is people that really don't care too much about awakening, about spirituality, and they're just there for the drug aspect of it. Whether they're consciously aware of this or not, I don't really care, but there is a lot of this where people are just seeking the psychedelic experience. And I'm not saying that you cannot have a spiritual experience from psychedelics, because I myself have had instances of some type of grand epiphany while I was on psychedelics. But before I had a spiritual awakening, I did many psychedelics, and I never considered them spiritual experiences. It was always me just high on these various drugs. And one could argue, oh well, you have to use it as plant medicine. And that's the whole gray area on, just because you're calling it plant medicine doesn't mean that you're going to be using it in the tradition of the shamanic path, in regards to the elders that used it before you in a ceremonial setting. So all these things need to be kind of spoken out loud so people can understand what it is that they're getting into. And that's the biggest thing that I see, is this abuse of psychedelics and kind of then masquerading as this spiritual elitism, that constantly getting high on mushrooms and plant medicine, and not really doing the harder work, which is a lot more reflection than always just ingesting these substances. I mean, I know a lot of people that are just they're doing a lot of psychedelic plant medicine on a very, very regular basis. And it is my understanding that we should use these sparingly and be very respectful of the sacredness of these medicines, and to not abuse them. Number 3, caring about outward representation and perceptions. This directly correlates, again, with spiritual materialism and the spiritual ego, we could say the spiritual ego. So this is when we care about how people are perceiving us. If they're perceiving us as a spiritual person, and then we get very wrapped up in this whole thing about how we are perceived and what we should be wearing and all of these things. So that is a true sign that you are still heavily rooted in your ego. And if that's the case, what happens is the ego will kind of supersede itself and create this spiritual ego, which you're unconsciously aware of. So it's like you're just masquerading again, going down the line here, and you're still unconscious of this, but you think that you're having this genuine spiritual experience, but you're not. It's the ego masquerading again as a spiritual ego. All right. Number 4, getting caught in the trap of healing. So number 4 is getting caught in the trap of healing. I myself fell into this trap myself, and why I call it a trap is because a trap is something that you can't get out of. And I would also argue that a trap, if you're in the trap your whole life, you will never even understand that you are in a cage, so to speak. So once we become consciously aware of these traps or these cages and these boxes that we put ourselves in, we can then take ourselves out of them. And getting trapped in the trap of healing is simply kind of going along with this idea that we're broken and that we need fixed, and having the inner feeling that we are broken all the time continually, and we are continually seeking something that is going to fix us, something that's going to make us whole, whether that's a relationship, whether that's the next yoga retreat, whether that's the trip to Costa Rica, that you're going to do ayahuasca, whatever it is. But it's this seeking that we need something to make us better, to make us whole. And anytime you seek something outside of yourself, you set yourself up for massive failure. So just be aware of this trap of the whole the healing aspect of spirituality, self-development, self-growth, and become aware that you are not broken. You simply need healing, but you were already whole. This is the better mindset to embrace, is the fact that you were already perfect and whole. Just think about when you were a child and then you suffered traumas and different things within your psyche that distorted your perception of reality. So it's more about healing in that aspect of it. Embracing that you are already perfect and now you just need to do some traumatic work through your life experiences and whatnot. So that would be the flip side of the whole I'm broken and I need fixed. Number 5. This segues right into number 5, which is the natural process of healing. So there is a natural process. There are laws of the universe. You cannot supersede these laws, and you cannot shortcut these paths. And some would argue that the psychedelic experience shortcuts you directly into massive healing. And while that is the case for some people, I do recognize that there can be massive healing with psychedelics, but there is also a natural process of healing. Just like in nature, there are natural processes, and there is a natural time that it should take you to heal. And if you aren't healing, then there are still underlying issues that you should be looking at as to why you aren't healing. Not thinking that there's something wrong with you and that you're broken and that you need fixed. So if we recognize that there's a natural process for these things to occur, we can move on quicker in our awakening and in our spirituality. So just a couple ones that are huge with people is heart trauma. Heart trauma is the biggest one. Usually all of our core wounds stem from some type of heart trauma. And also facing your shadow. Some people don't really understand what their shadow actually is. Your shadow is yourself. It is you. It is also directly related to your light. So the best parts of yourself is your light, and then on the opposite side of that scale is your shadow, which is the opposite of that light. But you are all of it, and there's simply an imbalance in some of these shadow aspects of your personality, and that's our job as light workers to become aware of what is actually going on within our personalities and in our psyches, so we can work on these shadow aspects, bring them into the light, and that is in itself the process of illumination, bringing light into your darkness. So there is a natural process that these things happen, and you can't rush growth. You can't go outside and yell at a flower to grow quicker. You just can't do it. Now, if you give the flower a nice environment, plenty of sunshine, plenty of water, nice soil, this will be the greatest things that you can do for the flower, but you cannot rush the process. And some would argue that, yeah, sure, you could put fertilizer on the flower, you could do all of these things, but it wouldn't be firmly rooted, as Jesus taught us. It wouldn't be firmly rooted and would not have this foundational structure to support itself. So it's just like the Purdue chickens. If you've seen any documentaries on food, you will know that they pump these chickens so much with hormones and chemicals that the chickens grow so big that they can't support themselves and they collapse. They end up falling over. So these chickens can't even stand up. And that is most of the chicken that we eat is from this just cruel, inhumane stuff that happens. So that's a direct example of forcing nature's hand, and what happens is the chicken falls over. So you cannot rush your healing. You must allow proper time for yourself to heal and grow naturally. And then the sixth thing of our pitfalls here of the New Age movement would be the recognition that we still are human beings. So I see a lot of things in the community like this is a simulation, and especially Elon Musk thinks that we're in a simulation, and all of these different things. And what happens is, just like the spiritual ego, these mindsets are very insidious. There's another concept by Dolores Cannon. It's called the background people. I'm sure you guys have heard of this as well. That it's a concept that only some of us are connected to our souls, and then all these other people are just inorganic. And so you have to watch very carefully about these teachings and these concepts, because what they do is they rob us of God's spirit. Because if you think that this is a simulation, that this reality is a simulation, it takes away creation. It takes away God, and it's a direct attack, but it does not present itself as a direct attack. But the underlying these mainstream ideas in the New Age movement, underneath them, they're very demonic in their nature, and we have to be aware of these things. So the sixth thing is, we are still human, is recognizing the fact that we are still human. It doesn't matter how much spiritual work we do, how much book reading we do. We are all human beings. We are all susceptible to the human condition and the fragility of human psychology. So do not think that you are never going to be subjected to humanness. And that's what brings us all together as well. And there's been masters that have come down, and even those masters have been subjected to human nature, just like all of us. We all have predispositions through our family lineage, through different things. We all have ancestral karma. We all have these things to work through. So there is an illusion that presents itself in the New Age community that we look at some of these people that are living these lives of extravagance and living in abundance and all these things, and we forget that these people put on their pants the same way that we do, right? They go to the bathroom just like us. So that is also an aspect of spiritual materialism, where we are only projecting the greatest parts of ourselves and never showing our struggles. So that's why I try to be transparent as possible sometimes, and just share. And nobody that is, quote unquote, some like a spiritual leader is never in a position that is not being mentored and not being led themselves. So, and we all look to spirit, right? We all look to God. We all look to different leaders and mentors in our lives. So I was trying to get at that the coach is coached. The mentor has a mentor above. It's like this hierarchical system with ultimately God being the supreme being that is above everything. And it's this hierarchy that we all are being taught and we all are being led as students of life. There is no one that is sitting on the mountaintop that is saying that they have all the answers and they have it all figured out. And if this is the case, this is just another aspect of spiritual materialism, which was our first one. So just to recap for the pitfalls of the New Age movement and modern spirituality. Number one, spiritual materialism. You can look into this. Nagchomp Yoka, I think a name. He wrote a fantastic book on this. Number two, abuse of plant medicine. Just be very careful with people in, like the spirituality and this abuse of plant medicine. So just be aware of that, especially people that are in recovery. And just be aware that there is still an addictive nature to these substances. Number three, caring about outward representation and perceptions is caring about the world. And you should not be caring about the world. You should be caring about your relationship with God, your relationship with yourself, your higher self. You should not be caring about what other people are thinking and doing. Number four, getting caught in the trap of healing. Just this constant seeking that you need fixed, that you need something else. Constant seeking, or maybe even the seeking for approval. Like I need congratulated on what I'm doing, right? You should feel amazing with yourself on the work that you know you're doing. Nobody else has to know the work that you're doing. And if you are doing the true spiritual work, you should just get naturally filled with joy on the progress that you have made. And yes, your coaches and your mentors too can see this as well. And that's something beautiful to watch someone grow and to look at the fruits of their labor coming in to fruition. Number five, natural process of healing, recognizing that there is a natural process for traumas. And, some people don't want to uncover those things, and that is fine. But they have to live with those traumas, and we need to kind of bring them up so that they can stop affecting these cycles in our lives. And then the last thing is that we are all still human beings. And that's the number one pitfall, is that after we awaken spiritually, that somehow we're superhuman. Dr. Joe Dispenza has this book called Becoming Superhuman. Not taking anything away from his work, but, becoming superhuman is the title of that book is just like, it's projecting this falsehood that it's projecting this idea that somehow we can become perfected. And if you know anything about the realm that we live in, we fell out of kind of that perfection, and we are working our way towards the new earth, and we are working our way back into that. But we are still human beings. There's not a magic pill that we can take. There's not some teaching that some lost secret teaching that we need to get so we can become whole. We already are whole, and we need to be grateful with what we have, not constantly seeking and desiring to be something that we are not. That is only reinforcing the fact that we do not have it, which is continuing this cycle of perpetual degradation of your spirit, is what I would say. So, some tips: don't get so caught up in all of this kind of hubbub of this time that we're in. Focus on your healing. Focus on your relationship with God. Focus on your relationship with yourself. Do your work. Keep your head down. Keep charging forward. Project love. Try to be compassionate and use the golden rule. Treat your neighbor as you would want to be treated. So I hope you guys got something from this pitfalls of the modern spirituality / the New Age movement. My next live stream, I'm going to talk about spirituality versus awakening, which I did talk about in the beginning of this, but I really want to devote a whole video to spirituality versus awakening and what actually is that whole thing. And I think it gives us clarity when we define these things and talk about them. We have conversations about them, so then we can be more mindful of what it is that we are in, and if we are in it, then we can, like the trap and the box. It's like this example where they have an elephant from a young age, and they chain one of his legs to a pole in the middle of the circus. And from a young age, he tries to get away, but he's connected. The chain's connected to the pole, and he can never break free. And that's how he lives all his life. Soon, later on, as an adult elephant, he has the chain on, and the chain is no longer even connected to the pole, but that elephant will not go outside of that circus tent because he is conditioned to that way of life. So that is, in a nutshell, what awakening is all about. We are awakening to the fact that there is so much more to us than we were led to believe. And I'll just leave it at that. So you guys have an awesome weekend. Check out my Etsy shop. I'm doing awesome things on there. auricstimulator.com. Doing some big things on there. So I'm really happy about that. And it's given me a new level of creativity and passion in some of these things that I'm creating. I've never had so much fun with sending out the packages and, doing all these things. So you guys have an awesome day. Thank you. Oh, hey, Inspire Resilience coming up. Thank you. Give a shout out. So sad. I hate how so many of the baby chicks get all caught up with the blades. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So, food, a good documentary is like Food Inc. And then there's a couple other ones. And that also is shedding light on where our food comes from. When I was, like in the early part of my spiritual path, I started to really become aware of where my food was coming from in relation to how I felt. So thanks for bringing that up. You guys have an awesome night. I will end this live stream. You guys have a great weekend. Peace.